Historic cabins and buildings, riverside trails, and elk all in one place? Welcome to the Oconaluftee Visitor Center, perhaps one of the Smokies' best-kept secrets. Welcome to Bear Facts, where we explore the Smoky Mountains one bear fact at a time. Nestled at the southernmost entrance to the Great Smoky Mountain National Park in North Carolina, the Oconaluftee Visitor Center is a welcoming blend of cultural history, natural beauty, and rustic charm. And yes, it took me a long time to be able to say their name right, Oconaluftee. Inside the main building, visitors find clean restrooms, a cozy store, helpful rangers, and an exhibit space that introduces the valley's deep past. Step outside and you'll wander straight into the preserved Mountain Farm Museum. Miles of walking paths, open meadows for elk viewing, and the relaxing sound of the Oconaluftee River drifting nearby. The Oconaluftee Visitor Center sits at the southern gateway to the Great Smoky Mountains National Park in North Carolina. If you're coming from Cherokee, North Carolina, the center is only a few miles from town, making it an easy addition to a day of exploration of the Native American culture, artisan shops, and local dining. However, most visitors are not coming from that direction. Instead, most of them will be coming from Pigeon or Gatlinburg. If that's the case, you got a little bit of a longer journey. And though it can be a long drive, getting there can be half the fun. So from Gatlinburg, the visitor center is actually about only 33 miles, which doesn't seem long until you realize that all 33 miles is on a road, 441, that cuts across the mountains and is about 30 miles an hour. So on average, it'll take about 45 minutes to an hour to actually get to this part of the park. Though make sure you budget some time in to stop along the way and take some photos. There are some spectacular vistas along 441 that will demand your attention. Also, in the winter, just be aware 441 does get closed often due to weather or weather changes. So keep an eye on the NPS website for updated closures and information about this route. So if you are heading down 441 from Gatlinburg or Pigeon Forge, one of the places you're going to pass by is Mingus Mills. I highly suggest making the time to stop here. The mill is just a few miles from the visitor center, and it played a major role in the communities of this area. Mingus Mills was actually built in 1886 and stands as one of the Smokies' most impressive historic structures. Unlike the classic wood water wheels many visitors would expect, like at Cades Cove, Mingus Mills is a fully functioning cast iron turbine water-powered mill system. The water travels nearly 1,000 feet through a flume from Mingus Creek and then rushes down a vertical penstock to spin the turbines and operate the millstone inside. It is a short quarter-mile easy walk from the parking area, and there's even a rest area right there at the entrance by the parking area for those who are stopping to visit. This is the perfect companion stop to the Mountain Farm Museum at the Oconaluftee Center. It shows how vital mills like this were to the families who once lived in these mountains. And the park has worked hard to keep this historic site active and in good condition. Though most of the wooden planking and water flues have been replaced every 10 years or so, the park has tried to maintain the techniques and construction of the original design, making it an authentic experience. Most people don't even realize they've passed the border of Tennessee into North Carolina as they're driving through 441, unless they stop at the Newfound Gap viewing and rest area at the pinnacle of the mountain pass. Once you have passed Kuahui, formerly known as Clingman's Dome Mountain, you will now be in North Carolina, which is where the Oconaluftee Visitor Center sits beside the broad Oconaluftee River. This slice of the Smokies rests at about 2,100 feet above sea level. It's surrounded by forest ridges and wide meadows. It's part of the protected Oconaluftee Archaeological District, an area rich with a Cherokee history and early mountain settlements. Visitors will find ample parking, although the park now requires parking tags for any vehicles left more than 15 minutes. Daily, weekly, and annual tags are all available right inside the center. Or you can purchase a single or weekly pass at the machines outside in the parking area. As you head towards the center, just past Mingus Mills, you might notice a cluster of buildings to the right. These are part of the Park Rangers buildings, which included the original ranger station built in 1941 by the Civil Construction Corps. Though not open to the public, it stands near the site and gives a rustic nod to the park's early days. The decision to add a full visitor center here grew from several important needs. First, the North Carolina entrance lacked a true gateway facility. While the Tennessee side had the benefits from the large Sugarland Visitor Center near Gatlinburg, travelers entering from Cherokee often found fewer services, less educational spaces, and limited ranger presence. Building a proper center at the Oconaluftee helped balance the experience for visitors on both sides of the park and allowed the national services to tell a fuller, more complete story of the Smokies. Second, this valley has had deep ties to the eastern band of the Cherokee Indians, whose homeland encompassed the surrounding areas, known today as the Qualla Boundary. Much of the cultural and archaeological history of the Oconaluftee Valley is Cherokee in origin. Villages, trade routes, agricultural fields, and sacred sites once formed the backbone of this landscape. Park leaders recognized that the North Carolina entrance needed a space that could better represent this cultural heritage, and the new visitor center offered room for exhibits interpreting thousands of years of indigenous presence. The Cherokee community supported the development of the new center as it improved the way the National Park Services shared their history, moving beyond the brief mentions and small given space to a more accurate and meaningful cultural narrative. Its location near Cherokee also makes it an ideal gateway for visitors, combining a trip to the park with experiences at the Museum of the Cherokee People and other cultural attractions. Finally, the new center provided full restrooms and facilities, modern educational spaces, improved visitor flow. The larger building allowed the museum, ranger staff, and public services to grow into something more welcoming and accessible. Today, the Oconaluftee Visitor Center stands not just as a place to get maps or ask questions, but as a thoughtful cultural and ecological gateway. It honors the Cherokee history, balances the experiences between the two park entrances, and gives North Carolina side the welcoming space it long deserved. Just behind the visitor center sits its star attraction, the Mountain Farm Museum. The main visitor center does close at 5 every day, but the Mountain Museum and restrooms are basically open all the time. So even if you get there and the main building is closed, you are still welcome to walk the grounds. You can access the Farm Museum from a paved trail just to the side and back end of the visitor center. It is a level looped road that takes visitors up through the back end of the property, and you'll loop back up to the parking area when you're done. As you walk the path, it unfolds like a living postcard of the Appalachian life around the turn of the 20th century. Though the buildings originally stood in different corners of the Smokies, each one was carefully relocated to create this immersive mountain homestead replica. The first structure you'll likely encounter is the John Davis cabin. It's a single-pen log home built around the 1900s from hand-sewn American chestnut logs. When it is actually open, the visitor center's open, you can actually look inside and see that they've actually staged the inside of the house to look like an authentic homestead. Though the furniture isn't original to the homestead, it helps set the scene and gives you a feel of the primitive lifestyle of the early settlers. Like many of these older cabins, this one was moved to the site, and each log and stone was carefully moved and reassembled at the Oconaluftee farmstead. Preservation crews relocated it in the 1950s, reassembling the logs in their original order to maintain its authenticity. Towards the back end of the trail, you're going to find the Enloe barn, the museum's crown jewel. Built in the 1880s by the Enloe family, this dramatic double cantilever barn is one of the few left of its kind in the world. The cantilever barn is a style of Appalachian barn where the upper story extends outward beyond the lower levels, creating a dramatic overhang loft on both sides. Instead of walls rising straight up from the ground, the second floor projects several feet past the lower foundation, almost like wings. And these overhangs were supported by strong interior log beams, the cantilevers, which allowed the barn to stay balanced without additional posts beneath the lofts. These wings that extended the loft provide storage for hay while protecting livestock below. And because the barn stood originally in this valley, it remains one of the most perfectly preserved mountain barns in the region. And though it's no longer used for actual livestock, the local elk population on occasion do wander in and through and around these structures. Another structure you're going to find is the Messer Applehouse. It was moved here from Oconaluftee Valley. It was built with space logs to allow natural ventilation, and it was the centerpiece of the apple preservation, holding cider, dried apples, and fresh produce. The Messer family's apple house represents how vital apple harvests were to the mountain families for food, trade, and winter survival. The blacksmith shop is actually originally from Cades Cove, and it's one of the most engaging spots for visitors, especially when they actually have it lit up and they have someone doing demonstrations here. This here is a springhouse, which now sits quietly in its new home. Unlike the example still sitting over water in places like Oconaluftee, this house was repositioned over dry land. Normally, they would sit over a natural cold spring water, and this one obviously was moved to preserve it from the damaging water. Before electricities, families would use springhouses as natural refrigerators, storing jars, produce, and dairy products in the chilly, flowing Smoky Mountain waters. And even though I understood why they had to move it away from an actual water source, I think a lot of people misinterpret the purpose of this place because it's missing its key component, which would have been water. Though it still does demonstrate exactly how families preserve food through the summer heat. Here and there around the property, you're going to find some other important structures, such as the corn cribs, which were used to dry corn for both people and livestock. Then there's the smokehouse, which was used to preserve meat for the winter. And of course, the hog pens, which obviously was for the hogs, which they can live in. You'll also notice they actually have gardens here and there. And of course, there's the apple orchard area where you can see they have some pretty high fences up to keep the elk out. Otherwise, the elk would probably eat them to nothing if they were given that opportunity. And that's not it. There's a lot more going on at the Oconaluftee Center than just the museum and the visitor center. You can actually take a couple different trails around the area. The main one being the Oconaluftee River Trail, which is a gentle 1.5-mile riverside walk that leads straight to the edge of the Cherokee property. With shady trees and a flat, even path, it's perfect for an easy stroll or even a bike ride, and is a popular spot for fishing. And then, of course, there are the elk. Reintroduced to the Smokies in 2001 after being hunted out of the region for more than a century, elk now roam the Oconaluftee Valley in a thriving and closely monitored herd. The elk of the Oconaluftee are among the Smokies' most charismatic residents. Their presence gives the valley a feeling that it's both ancient and alive. These animals once roamed the southern Appalachians in huge numbers, shaping the landscape long before modern settlements. After being hunted out in the 1700s and 1800s, they finally returned in 2001 when the National Park Services reintroduced them. They were first actually introduced to the Oconaluftee Valley, and then later they expanded naturally into Oconaluftee. If you want to learn more about the Oconaluftee area, I've actually done a video on them. Please follow the link at the end of the video if you want to learn more. Since then, the herds have adapted beautifully, and they settled into patterns that visitors can now reliably observe through the year. Through fall and winter, the elk movements are guided mostly by food availability, and they graze on the meadow grasses, twigs, bark, shrubs, and even acorns when they're plentiful. Elk are more active at dawn and dusk, which is especially true in the summer months when they are often seen close to the waterway. You'll see them kind of lounging around and trying to stay cool in the river behind the Oconaluftee Visitor Center. And they wander across the meadows and even graze right near the Mountain Farm Museum in that large field. By mid-morning, they often retreat into the forest shade to rest. Because elk routinely cross the main road and wander near parking areas, park volunteers and rangers keep a careful eye on traffic. They can create quite a traffic jam. As you can see, this one elk, as it's walking across, probably had about a 5-mile backed up traffic as we were driving by him. So just beware, if you see a traffic jam, most likely there's an elk somewhere. Not a bear though. Don't expect to see many bear in this area, because if you're going to find elk, you most likely will not see the bear. If you want bear spotting, head on over to Cades Cove, because this is not the place for it. Although we have seen bear in the area, it's just not very common. The Oconaluftee Visitor Center isn't just another scenic loop. It's a place where you can stand among century-old cabins, feel the mountain breeze drift through the rustling fields, and listen to the Oconaluftee River echo the stories of the Cherokee ancestors, and watch elk step quietly out of the morning fog. It's a corner of the park that asks you to breathe a little deeper and walk a little slower and appreciate the everyday ingenuity that once defined the mountain life. It's an easy access from Cherokee and an unforgettable drive from Newfound Gap. Oconaluftee becomes not only a gateway to the national park, but a reminder why these mountains are worth preserving in the first place. So, whether you're here for the history, the wildlife, the trails, or simply a moment of calm between busy tourist towns, this valley offers a gentler kind of magic, one that lingers long after you've continued your journey into the Smokies. I hope this video helps you plan your next visit to the Smoky Mountains. You're getting an honest review from our own personal experiences, but facts and things change, and I don't have an editor, so I make mistakes all the time. So if I misspoke or just didn't catch something in editing, just let me know and I'll acknowledge it in the comments. Thanks again for visiting us at Bear Facts of the Smoky Mountains. Please click that like button and subscribe to our channel.